Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to our new product Roundup webinar. I'm Brendan Sweeney with Customer Success here at ConnectSx. So today we're going to be looking at the cream of the crop for the features in the new release. So these are the hottest features sure to drive value for you in 2023. But it doesn't end here. So definitely go and take a look at our new release notes to get a full picture of everything that the new release has to offer. So you might wonder how you find those. I'm going to show you. So we're going to jump over to my browser. And if you go to our website, ConnectSx.com, and you'll go to the support section and pull up our knowledge base. Once you get to the knowledge base, you could search for anything under the moon. This is a great place to come to get a lot of your questions answered. If you're not able to get support immediately, or if you just want to answer your own questions on the fly, but you can search for your release notes. And we have a great page here that shows you everything that's going on with the current release. It has links out to a lot of the knowledge base articles. And you can actually down here at the bottom, check out our notes from previous releases and even our other apps. So I encourage you to check those out. Also, if you run into any questions or issues as you get into the new content and start playing around with it, please reach out to us. You can submit a ticket using our support portal, which again, you can access from our website. If you just tap on support, it'll bring you to this page. You'll be able to see that you can submit a ticket, chat with us, send an email, or again, access our knowledge base. I do encourage you to submit a ticket. I know a lot of people reach out to us via email, but this is the best way to make sure that your ticket gets served to our entire support team, which means that you'll get support as soon as possible. So definitely remember that that's there. So the general game plan for this webinar is that I'm going to move through the sections of the system, section to section, highlighting a few of the new features that we want to bring to your attention. And we're going to kick things off with some navigation updates. So I'm going to switch over to the console here. So the first pertains to the dashboard. If you've been in the system this week, you've probably seen this already. We've split the dashboard up into different sections separated by tabs. So you have your events tab, your inventory and movements tab. So a lot of these should still look familiar. And then your sales tab. And the cool thing about this is not just that it's separated and you can see things, in their particular categories, but you can also make a certain tab your default tab. So if you're someone that only really needs to see inventory and movements, you can set it up that way. Our next stop is actually down with notifications. You might have also noticed this if you've been in the system, but it's not just notifications anymore. We have an exports tab. So anytime you're exporting inventory, those notifications with the link to download your file will show up here. And then in the middle, we have mentions. And this is a pretty sweet new feature. Essentially, a mention is when you use like the @ symbol and then apply someone's username to tag them in like a comment. And then when you are tagged in a comment, it'll show up in your mentions notifications right here. So you can see here, I have a mention that I should go check out. So I'm going to click on the I, which will jump me to the event that the comment's on. And if I scroll down, I can see, yeah, it looks like some users are really trying to get my attention on this event. So I can leave them a response and also mention them back. So, they can come back here and take a look at my response when they get that notification. So this is a pretty sweet way to communicate with your team within ConnectSx. It's not just leaving comments anymore and hoping people see them. You can really draw their attention to these comments and get their eyes on it. The next navigation change is under reports. There's a couple of things going on here. If you go to the data exports section of reports, this is where you'll find kind of our quintessential reporting structure that's always kind of existed, except now it also is split up into tabs. So you have your total sales report is in this first tab. Everything's still pretty similar. You just apply your date range, run your report, and it'll show up in the history of reports down here. And you'll be able to continue to select previous reports like this one here if you want to download one that you ran like at a previous date. And all these reports, I won't go through each one in detail, but they still all have the same parameters that you can select. It's just a little bit of a different format. All right. And the next stop here in reporting is pretty sweet, if I don't say so myself. It's the visualizations tab. Now, this is a whole new reporting tool that we've added to the system. It goes beyond the dashboard. It goes beyond our data exports for reports. This is powered by Google, utilizing your data to really drive some pretty cool and powerful insights about your sales and your inventory. So these need to be configured by the ConnectSx team. So if your organization doesn't have this configured yet, drop us a support ticket and we'll get you set up. But once this is configured, it runs early every morning so that when you get into the office, you'll have a refreshed reporting section here, all new visualizations with data that's up to date through the previous day. So let's dive in here. This is the inventory report. Up at the top, you can select all different parameters, manufacturer, custody products. As you can see, a lot of different ones, a few across the top here to slice and dice your data. Also, if you look on the left-hand sidebar here, and you can even just expand it, you can also access the raw inventory data if you want to dig deeper in and actually, understand what you're looking at. And then you have the sales tab as well. Pretty similar, just looking at the sales data, you have all of your parameters that you can use to filter your data and take a look at these different graphs to understand, how you're doing, what's happening out there in the field. So this should really drive some powerful insights. There's a lot in here, so I definitely recommend you get in here and play around. And if you run into any questions, drop us a line. We can help answer any questions that you may have. Sweet. So that is what I had to go through on navigation. Our next stop is going to be in the directory, and it is regions. So we now have added a whole new piece of functionality, and that is managing regions and being able to look at your sales by region. This has been requested a number of times as different organizations manage their field in different ways. And there's a couple things you have to do to get this set up. The first thing is going to be to set up a regional manager. This is a all new role type that we've created. And let's go ahead and create one. So we're going to add a user, just like we normally would. We'll select the regional manager role. So this role kind of sits between admin and distributor. So distributor oversees sales, regional manager will oversee distributors and sales. And we'll click add user. So now that we've added our regional manager, we'll go back to the directory and create a new region. So we have West Coast, we have Northeast, we have Midwest. I'm not going to be exhaustive here, but we'll do an East Coast region. So I'll put in my name, then I'll select my regional manager. So we are associating the region with the regional manager here. And then you're going to search for the states that you want to be included in this region. So we'll do Georgia. And like I said, I'm not going to take the time to be exhaustive here, but we'll do a few so that you guys get the point. All right, so we have a few, and then we'll hit create. So now our region has been created. And the next step is to add the region to our users. So we have the regional manager connected to the region. Now we need to connect our users to the region. So if I go back to my users section and I pull up a sales user, we have this new field for region up here at the top. And you just select the region that you want to apply and click save. And so now when this rep does cases in states that are part of this region, you'll be able to run reports and see that, region tied to those sales. So this is all going to connect when you take a look at the total sales report. So we will go run one real quick. So I'm not going to expand my date range. I'm just going to go ahead and run it. And it should run fairly quickly for me here. There we go. We'll download it, open it up. Let me just switch my screen share over so you can see what I'm seeing. So hopefully you should be seeing my Excel now. And this looks like a, pretty standard sales report. If you've been using ConnectSx for a while, the big thing I'll draw your attention to is right here, and that is the region. So looks like all my sales so far this week have been in the Midwest region that I had set up. But if you wanted to come in here and make like a pivot table out of all of this data, filtering by region might be a good way to see how your reps are doing region to region. Cool. So let's head back to the console. Now there is one caveat to this cool new functionality, and it has to do with when you're entering state on a facility address. Now, because of the region functionality, we want to make sure that the states that are part of the address are validated. Basically, this is so you don't have people entering different spellings of different states. So, one state might be set as, CA for California. Someone might type out the word California. Someone might misspell the word California. And essentially the system wouldn't be able to understand that those all mean the same thing. So if we use a new drop-down menu, you can select from, here, I'll show you a new one. You can select from all of these different states and regions. It is a pretty large list. It's much bigger than just the continental United States because it's international and we're talking about different regions as well as states. So it's helpful to start to type in the state or region that you're looking for to narrow down the results. So that's just something to keep in mind. The other thing that I'll note here is all of your existing facilities, if they haven't already been created with this new validated state field, this will need to be set for each facility before you can go in and revise that facility. So let's say you want to modify the address or you want to add a point of contact. It's not going to let you save the page until you set this new state. So I highly encourage everyone to go reset this data sooner rather than later. That way, your facilities can be modified as normal. And then also the region functionality won't work well unless you have these validated states. So if you're going to be using this functionality or just in general, please definitely go update the states on all of your existing facilities. All right. So since we're in the directory, let's stay there. We'll go to procedures next. We have a new feature related to procedures that allow you to add modifiers. You can kind of think of these similar to tags. When you're creating an event, you'll add your procedure as normal, but now you can add modifiers. So bilateral is already one we have created here. Maybe I'm adding one for proximal. Whatever modifiers you might want to add. This is just an opportunity to add additional information about a procedure that might vary a little bit from case to case. So if we go over to an event, I'll find an open one. You can see here under procedure, we have our modifiers section, and I can just select from the drop down any of those modifiers that I had created. So there's one last feature I wanted to highlight in the directory, and this has been requested by a number of different people, so I wanted to make sure I highlighted it. You can now search the physician list by the NPI number. So if you open up a physician and add their NPI number, let's throw one in here, you can now search your whole physician's list using that. So if that's a particular use case that pertains to you, this should be an exciting one. And we're going to move on to the events section. So there's a few changes that we've made. The first has to do with how you select inventory to mark it as used. So you'll notice we no longer have a mark as used tab up here at the top. Mark used inventory has been moved over here towards where other actions and action buttons reside. So when we click mark used inventory, you also now scroll through this list and select the devices that you're going to, in the next screen, modify the quantity for. So in this screen, we just do the selection. In the next one, we modify our quantities and then mark them as used. And then once we get to this screen, the devices used tab should look pretty familiar to everyone. A little bit of a change though in terms of how you can edit the device data. So if you go to the pencil icon for one of these devices, you no longer just edit it inline. We have a new pop-up section that allows you to modify the status, the unit price, the single use or no charge status. And then you can just hit X or click outside of the window to save it. All right, so that has to do with our device selection. Our next stop is actually on the event detail screen. So, for a long time, we've had the functionality that allows you to add images to the device labels section or to the patient sticker section. But now we allow you to upload PDFs. So if you have, maybe you got a PDF of the PO from the facility, or maybe you got, an email that you wanted to save as a PDF and associate with this event. Those are now things that you can upload and they'll get dropped in here. You just click on this link and it'll bring up your document. So that's pretty sweet. The device labels and patient sticker section, those are only editable when the event is in an open status. However, you can add documents once the case has been closed. All right, so it seems like we've marked our devices, we've added our documents. It's time to submit this case for billing. And there's a change right here on this pop-up that I want to highlight. So on this screen, you're not just entering your signature anymore. You can actually just trigger an automatic replenishment request by checking the box right here. So typically you would have had to click the more button and then hit request, replenishment, and move through the screens. This allows you to kind of combine those two steps when you're closing the case. So you just check that box, hit submit for billing, and then the next thing you know, you're in the request screen. You just select your manufacturer from the event. All of the inventory is already selected there for you because it's looking at the case in terms of what you need to be replenished on. Feel free to modify the need by date. This is also new. You can signify that this should be a Saturday delivery. And we'll hit create. This is also, this existed beforehand, but setting the rep as the requester, anytime now that an event is associated with a request, the rep that is associated with that event will be set as the requester of that request. So that's just something good to keep in mind. And I will show you real quick how to do one of those ad hoc, because typically when you're requesting inventory from an event, it automatically links the two together. It also allows you to set the rep right there. But if we go to a created request, we'll just create a request real quick. So I'll select my manufacturer. We'll do a complete set of our total shoulder system product line. And then I will associate an existing event. Plug in a need by date as well. And so again, here we have this notification that we're going to be setting the rep from that event as the requester for this request, which is what we want. So we'll say yes, and we're good to go to fulfill this request. So we have one more update here that pertains to requests. And it has to do when a request has been partially fulfilled, or if it's just not going to be fulfilled any further. People have been wondering and asking, how do you get rid of a request or close it out when it's not going to be fulfilled anymore? And we've created a new button that allows you to just complete the request. So it exists down here in the fulfillment section, or up at the top. You can just hit complete and just confirm that this is what you want to do. And you can see it has closed out that request and called it fulfilled for us. Okay, so we're kind of moving into the inventory realm here with requests, so we'll stick with that. We have a new feature that starts off from the inventory detail screen, and I'm a particularly big fan of it. You can actually mark this device in an event from the inventory detail screen now. So up here in the right-hand corner, you have mark in event. It pulls up this pop-up, allows you to select from the existing events. And you can see you have the selection of the existing events in the dropdown. So you just select the event, select the status, and click mark, and it'll bring you to that event detail page, and the device will be added to the used devices. So just another way to back into, marking that inventory is used. I think it's a pretty slick new feature. And moving on, we have again, pretty exciting feature having to do with imports. So if you have trained with me, you know how I feel about these imports. It's really important to get your data correct. It's important to get the columns mapped correctly, because if you pull in all this inventory and it's not right, it used to mean a lot of manual work to fix. So in order to help combat that potential for human error, we allowed you to now delete or undo an import. So I'll just let the gravity of that sink in. Once you do an import, you can undo it for a period of time. There are a couple caveats though. So first, it has to happen within 48 hours of the import. So you have 2 days to figure it out. And then no activity can have happened on this inventory. So no changes, no updates to the detail pages, no transfers, no events. It needs to still be completely clean, exactly as it was imported. So I highly recommend that after you do an import, you go to the all inventory section and just triple check everything, make sure it looks good, so that you don't accidentally lose the opportunity to undo. So I have this import I did earlier today, and I'll delete it. So yeah, it was that easy. We just undid that inventory import. If it's a larger inventory import, this can take some time, but the functionality is there. And now we're going to move over to the bills of materials section. So a couple new things here. The first being that you can now duplicate a bill of materials. So you don't need to create it fresh. If you have a bill of materials that you're just making a couple adjustments, you want to, maybe make a custom set for a particular physician, you could copy the bill of materials that exists for that product line or that tray, and then just make a couple of adjustments. So I'm going to hit duplicate. It's going to bring up this pop-up for me. So I have to modify the name. So I'll just put in custom and then add any other items that you want. Modify their required quantities. Again, you have required quantity here, min and max. Min and max are more guidelines for people who are using the system in your organization. The required quantity is the one that the system uses to restock. Then if you want to remove an item, you can hit the red X right there. So I'll hit create, and we will get my duplicated new bill of materials. Pretty cool. Another new feature related to bill of materials is on the container screen. So I'll move over here to a container. In the bill of materials section, you can also click add new right there. So it's a whole new way to add a bill of materials right from the container detail screen. So this is the same thing we were looking at before. I won't take the time to go through the whole thing, but you can use a container to actually create a new bill of materials. So I think that's a pretty new, powerful thing as well. And the last update I have related to the bill of materials is on the inventory detail. So we created a new field for date of manufacture. So if you enter your manufacture date, which you can do whether you're creating your inventory manually or doing it via import, this will now govern how the FIFO and LIFO functionality works when you're auto restocking using a bill of materials. So if, just as a refresher, once you add a bill of materials to a case, or a container rather, you can auto stock that container up to the bill of materials to get rid of those shortages. And then when you're doing that, you select first in, first out, or last in, first out. So am I selecting my oldest inventory or my newest inventory? Now, rather than created date, which was, it used to refer to when inventory was created in the system, we now let you use manufacture date. We actually make you use manufacture date. So this is a better way of keeping track of how old your inventory actually is and making sure that FIFO and LIFO work as well as they possibly can. All right, now our next stop is going to be on inventory transfers. So this is also a piece of functionality that I think has been requested over and over again. And it's the ability to do a little bit more with your tracking information on a transfer. So here I have just an old tracking number from when I bought a football jersey because I don't have an active one. But what you can do now is select the shipment carrier, enter your tracking number. If you want, you can save it, but then hit view tracking info. Well, it appears that the tracking number I just used is no longer bringing up the same information, but the point being, enter your tracking number here, you'll get the status of the shipment, and you'll actually get updates as to where it's been, where it's going, just as you would if you went to the carrier's website. And then you can click this button here, which will take you out of ConnectSx to the carrier's page to see all of the details. So apologies for that tracking number not doing its job, but I implore you to definitely come in here and try it. It looks pretty sweet, and it's a pretty useful new feature. Our next stop is with containers. So another kind of navigation difference versus last time is we no longer display containers and devices together. So right now we're looking at all devices. That's how it defaults. But if you switch over to your containers tab, it'll automatically filter to containers for you. And you'll notice if you keep an eye right here that when you switch between devices and containers, a new option appears. So we now have a calendar view for containers. And what this is looking at is it's showing you cases that containers are associated with. So this should allow you to help plan your coverage of your upcoming cases. If you can see which cases are already associated with containers, you can start to see, all right, is this tray going to run into a conflict? Is it not going to have time to get sterilized before the next case? Are we double booked? Do I need to get this tray to the next state over to support the case the next day? That kind of thing. And all of these little, calendar tags here, calendar cards, are color coded according to the different status of the event. And for that matter, we have a lot of new calendar views. We have a calendar view on the request screen where you can look at your requests by need by date. So also helping you plan your inventory when it's needed, when it needs to go out, to support the cases. These are also color coded. And then transfers. We also have a pretty sweet transfer calendar here. So hopefully these new tools can help you plan your activity and understand where you're going to run into conflicts. All right. So our next stop, kind of exciting actually, is also pertaining to comments and notes. So if I go into an open event here, just so I can get to a comment section, I'm going to leave a comment. We now have emojis. So it may seem like not that big of a deal if you're not using comments all the time, but this is pretty sweet. And I think, between mentions and the emojis, this makes the comment section a lot more fun and a lot more powerful. So our last stop for our webinar today is to take a look at our new emails. So if you've been using ConnectSx for a while, you've probably gotten some of our email notifications or our reports that get delivered via email. Well, we did a big redesign on them, and we think that they look a lot better. So this is just one example. We got this sexy heading up at the top, new layout, in some cases, new content. And so this article is here in the knowledge base. If you want to come in and take a closer look at all the different email notifications, that's there for you as well. So I hope you had a good time going through all of these new features related to the new release. As I mentioned before, I definitely would love if you go check out the version notes or the release notes and use these links to read a little bit more about all the new features. We're also going to be sending out a product roundup email tomorrow morning that should highlight, some of the ones that we went over today, also giving you links to those articles. So if you felt like you had any questions or, wanted to, get a little bit more hands-on help in applying all these new features, shoot us a ticket, shoot us an email, and we can set up, a personal one-on-one to take you through it. So again, thank you for tuning in, and until next time.